Have you ever walked into a room, seen chaos everywhere, and thought, what on earth happened here? Now, I'm assuming it's not just your kids here, but imagine that has happened, and imagine that that room is actually your network. Imagine that's your data. And imagine that the one thing you didn't have was a record of what happened. See, my friends, that's not uncertainty. That chaos is now a mystery for you to solve. That's why Annex A 8.15 logging is critical. Because trust me, once you truly understand what this control is about, you'll see it is the digital equivalent of, say, CCTV, fingerprints, eyewitness accounts, and even forensic evidence all rolled into one. With so much data being generated and the use of digital devices increasing exponentially in our personal and our business lives, the need to log what's going on in your network has become increasingly important. That's why this particular control is focused on logging. Have you established the need for logging? And if so, what logs are you maintaining? The whole purpose of this control is to record events, generate evidence, and ensure the integrity of that logged information as well. This is to prevent against unauthorized access and also identify information security events that could lead to an information security incident. Ultimately, the purpose of logging of information is so that the information can be used to identify any issues within your systems or help you in future investigations and remedial actions. So what does the standard say? What does it require? Well, it states that logs that record activities, exceptions, faults, and other relevant events shall be produced, stored, protected, and analyzed. Think of this control like a three-legged stool. Take one leg off and it all collapses. So you must have logging for activities, what's happening on your systems right here and right now, exceptions where something breaks from the norm, and faults, errors, failures, and system problems. And these logs must be produced, stored, protected, and analyzed. So there's a lot in there. 4 actions, 3 log types, 1 essential objective: to know what happened, when it happened, how it happened, and who did it. So let's try as ever to bring this to life, give you some examples where we've seen this done really well, or how powerful and effective these logs have been. So we worked with a client whose critical server kept shutting down at 11 p.m. or thereabouts every single night. They couldn't figure it out. And they wondered, was it a ghost in the machine? Were they under a cyber attack? Was it a network fault? No, none of those. Actually, it was far more mundane than that. When we checked the logs on the systems and the servers, of course, they showed that the servers were being shut down. But more importantly, what we did is we checked the logs and on the physical access, the access to the room. Now, the logs revealed the server shut down at exactly the same time or thereabouts, around about 11 o'clock each night. And the physical access logs showed that the cleaner walked in at approximately 10:55 each evening. A quick chat later, and we found out that they were plugging their vacuum into the server power strip, causing the server to overload, or the power to shut down effectively the server itself. Now, without that log, without that information, it would have been a mystery, and we would have constantly been looking at the actual server itself and assuming that there was a system fault. Now, another example is where, well, just imagine a high-profile hospital that has, of course, hospital records, patient records, and this information was being accessed by people who had no right to see them. How did it all come to light? Logs. Without logging, it could have been buried forever. And that brings me on to another example, what we saw where in law enforcement, systems are strictly controlled. Yet there are cases where staff look up friends or family members or ex-partners. This isn't curiosity, it's misconduct. And in some case, well, certainly in some cases that we've seen, it's actually a criminal offence or has led to a criminal offence. How do you investigate? How do you detect it? Again, logs. These are digital fingerprints that just don't lie. You see, when an incident happens, and at some point it will, logs are how you reconstruct the chain of events. They're how you recover. They're how you respond. They are, more importantly, how you learn. And I suppose layered on top of that, ultimately, the aim of this is to learn from these things and to prevent them from ever happening again. You see, if you don't have logs, you can't defend your organization because you can't see the attack coming. So what will the auditor be looking for with this particular control? Well, again, as ever, a good auditor isn't going to want to see just mountains of logs. They're not looking for paperwork. They want to see that there are controls in place and that the controls are meaningful and that the logs are being managed effectively. So expect them to see things like, or expect to see access control logs, so ensuring logs cannot be altered or deleted. So who has access to the logs themselves? Of course, they're going to want to see what logs you are producing. So you need to make sure you've got a list of the various different types of logs across your systems and networks. As ever, think people, process, technology. So think about the technical side of things in terms of your digital devices, your laptops, your tablets, your mobile phones and such, and the software that's on them, but also think about physical access as well. So the process for managing physical access into different rooms, buildings, what's the logs associated to that? What about CCTV? What's being logged there? The auditor's probably going to want to see if you've got a SIEM as well, have a SIEM in place. They're going to want to see if you how you're using logs, how their events are being managed appropriately. So if you do have a SIEM in place or a SOC, then make sure that you have evidence all ready for them to be able to view. As ever, if there are issues, if you don't have logs in place or they're not being managed and maintained proactively, then you need to add that to your risk register. And the auditor will undoubtedly want to see that logs and events and issues are being discussed in your management review meetings as well. Just remember, the auditor is looking for control and intent, not chaos or even just logging for logging's sake. If you're logging things and not monitoring them and doing something with them, then are you really logging at all? So what do you need to do? Well, first of all, go and speak to your IT team today. Ask them, what are we logging right now? Who is being, or who is being analyzed? What is being analyzed? Where is this information being stored? And is it enough based on the severity or the sensitivity of the data that you're using? If you're using personal information in the examples I gave earlier, such as the hospitals, the police, etc., is user access into those personal files, is it being managed and logged appropriately? Use your data classification to decide what you must log as well, or what controls or logging you must put in place around those particular file areas. Think about physical access to sensitive areas, visitor logs, failed logon attempts, changes to systems, files, or accounts, inbound, outbound network activity, software and system access, faults and failures. And finally, make sure your logs feed into an effective monitoring system, which leads you onto the next control, which talks about monitoring, which is Annex A 8.16. So we'll talk a little bit more about monitoring shortly. So there you go. There's a lot in here, but it is very specific around logging. So the next control that I've just mentioned, we're going to talk about how you monitor these things, but make sure that you have appropriate logs in place. To recap, again, I'm going to go through that list again. Think about the physical aspects, think about visitor logs, think about physical access into sensitive areas, physical access controls that you might have. If you've just got someone who's got a key, then it's very difficult to monitor the access into an area. You'll never know when someone uses that key. So maybe if it's a sensitive area, maybe you do want to put a code in there, maybe RFID cards, so that it would say, well, this particular person gained access into this area or attempted to gain access to this. So again, think physical, as I've just said, visitor logs, physical access to sensitive areas. Then think about the digital aspects, the systems that you use, the laptops, and devices. So failed logons, changes to systems and files, especially if you are in a development environment. So again, if suddenly a problem occurs in your network or your systems, or a particular product and service offering that has been working well previously and it suddenly stops working, you want to be able to go to your log files and say, right, what changes were made? Who made those changes? Why have they impacted upon the live environment as they have? If you have the ability, think about your network controls as well, and the logs that are dealing with inbound and outbound traffic. How would you know if you're losing swathes of data at 2 o'clock in the morning being sent off to foreign shores? You know, there's 2 GB of data just suddenly just evaporated from your network at 2 a.m. Who's looking? Well, that's the monitoring piece. But before you can monitor it, who's logging it? So there you are. But just remember this. Logging isn't about data. It's about evidence. It's about truth. It's about knowing what happened before it becomes a headline, a crisis, or even a catastrophe. So just keep this in mind. If you want to protect your business, if you want to build trust, if you want to stay secure in a world full of digital threats and such, then logging isn't optional, it's essential. And it really is essential before we move on to the next control, where we start talking about monitoring. So there you go. I hope that's been helpful. As ever, I'm Gary Hibbard of Consultants Like Us, where we provide compliance without complexity. Just keep it simple. It's a repeating theme I keep on saying to people. Look, if you're a small organization, then just understanding and going back and watching this video and those areas that I've told you to log, think about what's important to you and then log those things. We'll talk about monitoring in the next video. But I hope that has been helpful. If it has, please give it a like, give it a share. You never know who you're going to help. As ever, you will definitely be helping me. So thank you very much. And don't forget to hit the little bell on the video so that you're reminded of future videos as well, which basically means you've subscribed. So thank you very much again in advance. So thank you, and we'll see you on the next video, which definitely dovetails into this. This is one of those controls where I do wish they would have just combined the two, logging and monitoring. So close. Anyway, enough of that. I'll put the soapbox away. Until next time, stay well, stay safe, and stay connected. Thanks. Bye.